Yeah.
So I actually think the genius of this movie goes a little bit further, which is that it does all of these things, right? It discusses it plays with audience expectations and genre tropes and structure and all of these things, but it also is just a really good slasher, right? So I actually watched Scream before I watched other slasher movies. So about a year ago, I kind of went through the exercise of watching Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, pretty much the entire franchises in about 2 months, which I wouldn't recommend, but I kind of just want, I had heard mixed things about them. Like, some of them are classics, some of them are infamous for being pretty terrible, mostly because they, much like today's franchises, if a movie works, it gets a sequel, and they keep making sequels until it stops working, and then as a result, people remember how the franchise ended as opposed to how it started, right? So if a franchise gets run into the ground, it's like today's Star Wars, right? Like it starts out with high acclaim, and then they make another one, and each one is a little bit worse, and then people remember the bad ones more than the good ones after a while, right? And slasher movies were kind of like this throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s, from everything I've heard. And so if you just watch, we watched the first Halloween, right? And you guys were, I think, a bit lukewarm about it. And that's a good one, right? Like if you watch the entire franchise, some of them are better than others, but a lot of them were kind of made because the last one made money. And they just keep trying to kind of drag out the premise for another movie until it stops working, essentially. So the point I was already trying to make is I watched Scream first, and then I watched these classics, and the classics were really underwhelming because of that. Because actually, I think this is one of the best slashers, just in terms of how it flows, the characters, the kills, the mystery of who the killer is. All of those things work better than in your average slasher. And then on top of that, it's also a satire of not just slasher movies. It plays with the idea of movies and how audiences engage with movies, and it's doing all of these things at the same time. But if you don't have an eye for that, if that's not what you're there for, you are still getting a really good slasher movie, right? And then if you watch it again, you maybe notice more and more and so on. But this is not just a movie for film nerds to kind of agree with each other how genius it is, right? This is actually just a good movie first, and then it builds the other layers on top.
What made this movie a little bit more satisfying, especially sort of compared to Halloween, was, like you said, was that mystery and having that mystery resolved. And you can kind of sort of on first watch, there's like things mentioned, and there's like obviously like pieces put in play, such as her mother being killed the year before. It was definitely good, even though it was kind of done in sort of a bit of an exposition dump at the sort of end of the movie. It was good to get an understanding as to why this was happening.